quick video about the initial impression and if you can set up this tent in the rain without getting everything wet. So I got the Ultralight Morgar 2-person tent from Naturehike. Got it for $100, so it's a cheap budget tent. The plan is not to go backpacking with that. That's just a way too heavy system for backpacking for my taste. The idea is to use that for bike touring. The nice part that I liked about, or what I'm hoping to get out of this tent, is the ability to set up the tent as a freestanding tent. I have much lighter and smaller ultralight tents that work great for backpacking. One uses a trekking pole and the other one is just a one-person tent. So I like the two-person tent just because you have more room. The one-person tent is pretty crowded. I mean, it's awesome, very awesome. You can set it up anywhere where you basically hike. If the path is there, you have enough ground to set up the tent. But your backpack doesn't really have any room inside of the tent. And you basically end up sleeping on top of it if you take it inside. This one is a two-person tent. The plan is a one-person kind of slightly luxury tent. You have room in it. That's also my other hiking tent that uses the hiking poles. It's also a two-person tent just because of my experience with the one-person tent. I do like that extra luxury. Maybe this tent works also for a two-person bike tour. Obviously, we won't be able to pull in bags. We would have to store them in the vest loops or do something else about that. Anyway, what I want to get into is seeing if I can set up this tent here with the rainfly first, so the tent itself stays dry. Quick overview here. So in this bag, this is the main bag that has the tent and the cover in initially. Right now it's only the inside tent what that's in there, so it's perfectly nice. I think it would be kind of crowded with both the rain cover and the tent. But the truth is, you probably don't want to put the rain cover and the tent together because the rain cover is going to be wet and it's kind of a lot of management. So I have to figure out how exactly I'm going to pack the tent so it's going to be easy to pack, unpack. The inside tent doesn't get wet if the outside is wet. And also where the ground sheet goes, where the poles go. I don't like to roll up the poles inside of the tent because ultimately the end of the tent's poles will always poke a hole into the tent, making the tent last much shorter. So it would be nice to keep that separate. With the tent you get stakes. These ones are, if you want to go ultralight, they're fine. They're very small. Even when I go hiking and really look at grams, I get the bigger tent stakes just to be sure it holds on the ground. So that's the one thing that I probably will be changing. It's nice to have some extra strings in there. If it's enough, will to be determined. So it has a baggie for the mat, a baggie for the tent stakes, and a baggie for the poles here. So let's go ahead and move everything off the ground sheet and start setting up the tent. So the first thing is you lay out the ground sheet. The ground sheet has here little holes where you can put these tent stakes right in. So I'm gonna go set up the tent pole above the ground sheet so it can hold up the rainfly. The nice part about the poles is there's no geometry on it. Well, the width and the length are different, so it's not exactly, but it doesn't matter which side as long as you have the fin on the white side correctly aligned, and that's pretty obvious. So let me go ahead and set up the camera and remove the rainfly. So as you see, the ground sheet is holding up the poles quite nicely. So that's a positive. Let's go ahead and get the refly. If you want some orientation on the rain fly, at the narrow end we have a couple of ventilation slits here, and no, it's inside out. That's my ventilation slits here, turning the other way. So right here is the ventilation slits on the short side. On the long side we have the door with the zipper. So you can go ahead and put the rain fly on. Right here in the middle there are two strings that you can optionally tie onto the pole where they cross. A little small for a loop, a short for a loop there. Yeah, I'm just gonna loosely do one, tying one strong. Definitely don't want to do a granny double knot. So right on top of the zipper there's a metal hook that you can go ahead and hook it on the spreader pole. And the same thing on the other side. Okay, now probably would be nice not to have the center tied on. Let me undo that knot, see if that makes any difference. Still no give. There is no adjustment buckle, so it's perfectly the right length, but you need to bend this pedal forward a little bit in order to get that length. So with that, you really don't need the center tie down. If you wanted to, there are a couple of other ties that you could do right here to hold the pen onto the poles. I'm gonna go ahead and skip that. Probably if it's extremely windy, maybe that helps. But once the hooks on the bottoms is in place, we got the tension that we need on the rain fly. That doesn't matter too much. Of course, I could change my mind once I'm sleeping in a strong storm. Oh, I still had that door propped open. That's a little cold here. Interesting. Okay, so now we have the tent set up, and the shape is quite well done, I think. If you want to open up the vent, you can just undo the Velcro. I don't think there's a spreader bar or anything here. Just the Velcro there that you can undo. So there are some tie out points for the string. Definitely would be helpful. The tie out point here. Interesting. So the fly, both sides has a door opener. Right here, a nice toggle. So you really have a nice opening. Let's go ahead and open that actually, since I have to go in here anyway. So let's just go ahead and tour what we have so far. If you really are in mosquito-free world, there is no problem using this here just as the rain shelter. So again, we could tie down right here, right here the strings to the pole. Here we have 2 strings, and on the window, on the narrow side we have 2. There is a loop of some sort here, so you could hang something in here, but it's on the inside. So that won't work for staking out the tent there. So that is quite interesting. I wonder if that causes problems in strong winds or not. Again, experience will tell me. If maybe these 2 points would be enough to tie down the tent. And in a strong wind, actually, you would put the stakes right in the bottom of the door and stake that out. So maybe that's good enough. You always have to leave one side of the fly out. Anyway, let me reposition the camera so you can watch me set up the inside of the tent. Okay, this might actually be harder than I thought. I hope you can see into the tent good enough. But right now we have a nice dry area. Obviously we would stake out this side, maybe even one of the doors here. And you bring in your gears. And you get the rest of the tent out. Probably one of the first things maybe to do is take off your shoes, because you're going to step on the tent a little bit. The next thing is roll it out and put the metal tabs on each corner under the pole. So you basically end up with having 3 tabs under the pole. Again, this is the second time I set up the tent, and the first time to set it up in a rain scenario. So the next thing we need to do is put up the mosquito nets. Has also metal tabs that go at the end of the tent. So let's go ahead and let me actually go ahead and do this one again. I think that might be easier because now I can move the whole tent, scoot it over here. So we hook it up here. We can just go ahead and take the tabs and hook them onto the poles. Yeah, so leaving this off definitely helps because you can work out much better. So I have nearly all the tabs up. I go ahead and put that under the pole. Put the last tab in here. And all that we have left is this metal loop here at the end that needs to go on that pole. And there we have it. That worked very good actually. I hope it got caught on camera halfway decent. So right now we have the tent all set up. Obviously we would have the fly, at least one side of the fly staked out to get some rain protection. And now we're in here. So again, we have a toggle on this pole, on that pole, one right at the corner, one here. Then we have the crossbar and the same thing on the other side. The doors basically point the opposite direction. So here is the rounded corner on this side. Here's the rounded corner on that side. The only thing you want to focus on is where you want the narrow side and where the wide side. And you can sleep in it either way. We have a pocket here and a pocket there. And a hook right here for something. Oh, interesting. Light or so. We have a mesh net here, which is awesome for letting dry some socks and whatnot. I always have that. This, I really like that. On my other tent, what I did is I ran a string from here to here and just leave the string always in there to hang on clothes to dry or whatever. So far, this tent looks very good. Oh, I see there's a yellow tab. I'm wondering what that yellow tab does. So if I go here, yeah, from inside I can't do anything. I think the yellow tab can be used to push out the vent opening. Let's go ahead and try that. Okay, so that's the outside thing. Just open up the Velcro. So in here we have, yep, that's a little bit rigid. Now there's a Velcro on there, so we can go ahead and put the Velcro on here. And now the vent is nice and open. Let me do that on the other side, where we have a little bit more room to show how far out that comes. The one problem is I don't have it staked out. So if it would be staked out, it would have a nicer shape to it. Number 5 here. So that looks good. We peek inside again, and we see now the vent is a little bit more open. So again, I really love what I see so far. The mesh net really will help in the steamy hot Midwest, where it might not rain also, just to protect from the mosquitoes, because they are pretty brutal. Again, I don't think I need to show you how to take that down. You just go ahead and do the reverse on that. How to pack it perfectly, I still have to figure that out, so no need to talk about that at all. Here we have the tent with just a mosquito net setup. Again, we have the sheet, the bottom tarp and tent in the stake, and the crossbar. So it's really nicely freestanding here with no pegging, and strings are needed for setting it up as a mosquito shield. One thing that I started playing around with when I took it down is removing the ground sheet before the rain fly. So what that does is the rain fly now only hooks on to the poles, and it already gives some rain protection. The poles spread much further out, and that's because I don't have it cinched down extremely on the sides at all. And I was wondering if that would be a slight improvement on how to set up this tent, because now you can set up the rain fly and then put a ground sheet on, and the ground sheet does not get wet, besides obviously from the ground, which is wet, but not the inside. And that makes sure that the floor of your tent will stay drier as well. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, and maybe trying out in the field. I mean, this year is all just a test here in the house. Even in the backyard, it wouldn't be the same as once you're out in the field, tired and raining and crappy mood. But definitely something to keep in mind, and see if I can do that and play around with it. But then the next step already shows the flaw of this setup, where you don't have the ground sheet and you start with the fly. So now the inside of the fly lies on the ground, both when you start out and when you set it up and when you tear it down. Seeing that pretty much throws that option out of consideration, and I'm gonna be back in the original way of doing it. Setting up the ground sheet. Go ahead, let the ground sheet get wet. The tent does have a floor, just so that the inside of the rain fly doesn't get dirty and wet, because that stuff will drop on you on the mesh and come through and just make a mess. But looking forward to using that tent. See you sometime down the trail.